Hey, everybody. Welcome back again to a little Austin Sports Weekend with the man right here himself. It is the last week
Of college
of
football.
college football. We have to talk about some college football, but first, again, thanks again to SevereTV.com for
Sponsored by.
setting us up here in the nice studio, and sponsored by also Autographs Plus. Thanks for them for hooking us up with a couple autographed helmets, a little Peyton Manning, a little Alvin Kamara. But let's jump into this. We have to talk about Week 13. It is the final regular season week of the year, and then we'll jump into
Conference
predicting
title games.
the championship weekend. We did have a little Thanksgiving week
Football.
football. We had the
Egg Bowl.
We had a little deviled egg bowl.
And it wasn't the good kind for Mississippi State.
No. Ole Miss. We knew that Ole Miss would probably win this one, Mississippi State.
But only by 10.
Yeah, it should have been a little bit more than that. I think the line was actually 10 and a half. So it was right at the line. Those games are always close. But Mississippi State will have a new head coach,
Jeff Lebby.
Jeff Levy. Mississippi State did fire their head coach, and now they've got the offensive coordinator for Oklahoma
Coming in.
So they took the offensive coordinator from Oklahoma, and next year Mississippi State will maybe be a little bit more powerful offense. But congrats to
Ole Miss having a 10-win
Ole
season.
Miss having a 10-win season, yep. Jump into some Friday games. Because of the holiday, we had a bunch of Friday games, so we'll jump into those. We had TCU, Oklahoma.
Where was the defense?
I don't know. This was a basketball game. Wasn't it 69 to 45? That's a little nuts. But I guarantee you, Mississippi. That's probably why Mississippi State hired the offensive coordinator. You put up 69 in the game, then your offense is pretty good.
Yeah, pretty solid, I say.
Pretty solid. Oh, and I think maybe the head coach swap that USC did with Oklahoma, and then I think
How's
Oklahoma.
that looking?
I mean, last year you're thinking, well, Oklahoma got screwed in that one, and then this year it's maybe looking like Oklahoma got the better half of the deal in that one now. We had Missouri.
Arkansas, thankfully, their season ended.
Missouri, and again, congrats to Missouri.
Missouri is 10-2 for the first time in a decade.
10-2, won 48 to 14. Arkansas is going to keep their head coach. At least that's what we're saying.
And they're going to add Bobby Petrino.
I think he deserves it too. Yeah, they are bringing back Bobby Petrino as the OC. If he doesn't ride into the first game on a motorcycle onto the field, something's wrong. He needs to come in. His first press conference, he needs to wear a neck brace.
Have it come full circle.
You got to just go in there and just hug it and welcome it and just come in with the neck brace on.
Kind of like us with
just,
the mustard.
Exactly. You just got to take it and love it. But congrats again to Missouri. Had a little Texas Tech. Texas
put up a
57-7.
Put
Ew.
up a whipping.
I didn't expect it to be that bad.
Down at a stomp up rodeo.
I did. I think Texas is trying to worm their way into the playoffs.
I think if they win the Big 12 title game, I think they will be deserving of a spot.
They this is going to be really interesting coming down to picking these last four teams. It's going to be. I would not want to be on the panel to do it, especially. I mean, we can talk about it when we start talking about the championship games next week. But it's going to be interesting. We had Penn State, Michigan State. 42 to
Nothing.
nothing.
I know Penn State's defense, it's a good unit, but Michigan State is awful.
Yeah, Michigan State. They really had a coach in waiting there because they hired.
Jonathan, their head coach from Oregon State.
They took Oregon State's head coach from them. So next year, Oregon State's head coach will be Michigan State's head coach. And he was pretty good out there. And
He got Oregon State to a 10-win season last year and
Yep.
got them inside a really tough Pac-12 this year.
This year, yeah. We had Oregon State, Oregon.
Now, Oregon State looking to try to build up a new dam with a new head coach, and Oregon trying to vie for a playoff spot.
Oregon 31-7. Oregon looks really good, dude.
Man, did you know that Bo Nix has a 78% completion percentage on his passes?
How crazy is that?
And that's including the deep balls.
How crazy is that? Bo Nix, in my opinion, if I had a Heisman vote, Bo Nix would probably get it now. It was really close between him and Penix, and Daniel down from LSU, but all of his numbers they're all just fantastic. It would be
37 touchdowns to 2 interceptions.
and a 78% completion ratio.
That's insanity.
That is, and a very, very, very tough Pac-12 this year.
Only getting out with a loss, albeit very close.
That was again Oregon trying to they're number 6 trying to
They're
weasel
really-
their way into the playoffs, which they got
Good chance.
They got a better chance to get into the playoffs than anybody does right now. Jumping on into the Saturday games, we'll go ahead and talk about our little Tennessee Volunteers. Finished up the season with a really good win, 48-24
over the rival Vanderbilt.
over rival Vandy. Milton had his best game probably of his season. Anyways, he threw for 300 yards, had about 6 TDs, didn't he? Threw for 4, ran for 2. So congrats to Milton finishing up his career
Literally,
there good.
not only did Tennessee beat up Vandy on the field, they beat up Vandy on the field.
On the sidelines
If you
too.
know, if you know what I mean.
Yes, they beat them up physically and mentally. So yeah, and
Vanderbilt-
football-y,
Vanderbilt-
however you want to do it. Yeah.
How about bad programs? Vanderbilt has 10 straight losses to end the year.
And after the game, they fired their head coach. So he's fired too. We had our game of the week, Ohio State, Michigan, and that was our
What did I
guaranteed.
expect?
That was our guaranteed lock.
What did I expect?
I actually thought Michigan would beat them by more than they did. It was I think 3.5 point line. They beat them by 6.
If Jim Harbaugh was there, it would have been double digits.
Yeah, I think it would have been 12 to 14 points.
But they got lucky that they got the interim, and they still couldn't win.
Michigan now has won how many in a row against Ohio State?
The rank 3 straight in the big game.
3 straight. But before that, you would have never thought, man, Michigan's never going to be Ohio State, man. They just can't pull it. And now
They flipped the script.
Harbaugh's figured out how to do it,
And he's flipped the script.
and he's flipped the script. Now the Ohio State people are going, well, you need to get rid of Day. He can't beat
That's one of the
Michigan.
dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life.
Man, he only wins 11 games. You got to fire him.
That's most programs would die to have a freaking 11-win season.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
ask us. We had an 11-win season, and we were jumping for the hills, wanting to give Heupel an extension.
Yeah.
These people,
Want to fire Day because he can't beat Michigan.
even though he's got a 55-3 record against everyone else.
Yeah. Next year, people need to just chill out, wait for next year. Next year, we've got a top 11 playoff plus an extra. So there'll be 12 teams in the playoff next year. As long as your team is a top 10 team,
You're good.
you got a chance to win the Natty. So just
You're
chill
good.
out. Next year, you can prove yourself. Now, if starting next year you lose every time you go into the playoffs, then we can start talking some maybe he ain't that good stuff. But leave it alone until then, because right now you don't know. Right now it's just a rivalry game, and Michigan's a little better. That's all it is. We had Kentucky, Louisville.
How about some-
surprise!
Kentucky said, say hello to my little friend.
Yeah, here, take this L, Louisville.
It's a U of L.
Yeah, it's a U of L. They took the L. You can't spell Louisville without an L. I did not expect that. I thought Louisville was really
Finding themselves.
finding themselves. They were playing a really, really good year, but
And then Kentucky comes in as a
Kentucky,
rival.
there was talk that somebody might be going for Stoops.
Texas
as-
A&M, that's all over with right now.
Yeah, Texas A&M has their head coach, but there was rumor that somebody might take Stoops. I don't know if Stoops was trying to put on a showcase for an A&M head coach or what was happening, but they looked like they did 5 games ago before they went on the 5-game losing streak.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But congrats to Kentucky because that was a very, very good win to finish out the season. Maybe they need to give him a contract extension.
Give them a contract extension.
Give Stoops a contract extension. I mean, he beat a top 10 team to finish out the year. We had Texas A&M. Speaking of Texas A&M, at LSU, and LSU beat them 42-30, and now
And Texas A&M has a new head coach for the future, and Mike Elko
Mike Elko
from Duke.
They took Duke's head coach. Duke did look really good this year. Elko's he's the new up and comer. So
You got to take the hot shot.
got to take the hot shot and see how he goes.
While LSU's
I
offense
wouldn't give
continues.
him a $75 million guaranteed contract though. Ouch.
LSU's offense continues to crank and their defense continues to struggle,
Yep.
which is on Brian Kelly.
That's on Brian Kelly.
Oh,
Yeah.
BK, have it your way.
Yeah. We had Alabama Auburn. This was the shocker of the week. Auburn lost to who last week?
New Mexico State.
Auburn lost to New Mexico State. They were a 27.5-point favorite. They lost to New Mexico State last week. And now this week, they should have beat Alabama.
But how do you give up a fourth and
Fourth
31?
and 31. Did you see the holding calls on that play?
Oh, my God.
Oh, gosh. Alabama's players were like this, holding people off of the quarterback so he could get that pass in.
That was ridiculous. How you'd even allow that?
But
How many
but
Mississippi's was he in there for?
it's not a penalty unless it's called a penalty. So I mean, how do you only rush 3 when it's 4th and 31? How do you let the quarterback go back there and dance the waltz across the whole field?
Take a sip of
Take a
his
sip.
favorite drink.
He went
order
over-
a pizza.
He went up to the sideline, got some Gatorade.
Ordered a pizza.
Come back out, and then picked out the guy he wanted to throw to. I don't know how Auburn's defensive coordinator wouldn't throw 5 at him and make him get the ball out.
It's a common-
4th and 31. It ain't
It's a-
4th and 3.
it's a common
4th
mistake.
and 31.
It's a very common mistake.
Auburn deserved that L for only rushing 3. That was just crazy.
That's just
But congrats to Alabama. Now we got what we wanted. And Alabama, Georgia.
SEC title game. The
SEC
first
title
time
game.
they played Cincinnati.
First time they've played together, yeah. So it's a while. It's gonna be a fun game. We had Arizona number 15 taking on Arizona State.
Speaking of an
Arizona
up and coming team,
39-23. Arizona looked pretty good, yeah. Arizona's one of those teams that we hadn't talked a whole lot about because they've been decent, they've been good,
but they've been slowly rising as of late.
and up to number 15. So congrats on the win over AZ State, who's pretty bad this year. We had Washington State. Washington squeaked that one out.
In the Apple Cup,
I thought that would be a little bit more than that too.
but it's
I
a
think-
rival game.
Yeah, it is a rivalry game, and I think Washington's came down a little bit. They're still undefeated. You got to keep them where they're at in their ranking, but they're not quite as
They're
potent.
vulnerable.
Yeah, I think they're a little vulnerable right now, but still, congrats. They are number 4. We had number 5, Florida State. Florida, they didn't need their superstar quarterback
To beat Florida and end Florida's bowl hopes.
But yeah, Florida should have won last week. That was the. But anyways, they didn't win last week, and now they are 5-7. Florida is not going to a bowl game.
Well, there's college basketball ahead, so maybe a little bit.
No. We had number 1 Georgia Tech.
This was a struggle game.
That was close.
That was the
They
first
always
time.
do that. Georgia always does that. They'll beat number 9 Missouri by 20 points, and then they'll beat Georgia Tech by 8. I don't.
That was the most competitive Georgia Tech has ever made this game in a while, so I'll
Yeah.
give it that.
Congrats to Georgia Tech. But why? Anyway, Georgia again coming up this week. They'll score 50. That's just who Georgia is. Oh no. But anyways, that is it for the top 15 for week 13. Let's jump into our championships game. We'll go ahead and cover all the championships games. There's only 7 of them. Just to see what's going on. We have the Conference USA Championship, New Mexico State, Liberty. Liberty is 12-0.
And New Mexico State is 10-3.
And Liberty's actually ranked number 24. So congrats to Liberty. I'll probably take Liberty
I
in
happen
it.
to know someone who I grew up with as a child that went to Liberty, so I'm going to
Yes.
pick me some Flames.
I'm going to pick me some Liberty there, too. Probably might be the game of the week. This one definitely
Probably
has
one of the games of the season.
the playoff implications. Whoever wins this game is probably in the playoffs. Whoever loses this game
Is
is out of
out.
the playoffs. We have Oregon, Washington, in the Pac-12 championship. I think this thing's played in Vegas. Oregon's favored by 10. What do you think?
Oregon wins, but not by 10. I mean, come on.
They might.
They might.
Washington's been struggling a little bit lately, but I've got Oregon winning it too. Oregon's been on fire lately. But
I
I'm
have
like-
Oregon winning the game.
But yeah, I'm like you. I think it might be a 3 or 4 point game. I don't know if it'll be 10. It might be a 7-point game.
I'd be surprised if it were double digits like
It
a
would
domination.
be tough because this means everything to Washington. If they lose this by double digits, it's almost embarrassing. You know, there's a little revenge factor. Washington give Oregon their only loss this year, But I'm sort of like you. I'm thinking it's, a 27-24 type game, 31-24 type game more than it is a 10-point game. Saturday, we got the Dr. Pepper Big 12 Championship. Oklahoma State, Texas.
Not only did you get yourself a full chug of that sweet soda goodness
Uh,
that gives you diabetes if you drink too much.
But you've got Texas. Texas is on fire right now. Texas wants to be in the playoffs, so Texas needs to win this game handily.
I happen to know a little sea squirrel that happens to know something about Texas.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And she might pick a Longhorn here, so I'm going to pick Texas here.
I'm going to pick Texas, too. The line's 15.5. I honestly think that they try to make it more than that, so they can look good for the pollsters. And then the other game of the year, Georgia, Alabama.
How about that SEC?
In Atlanta for the SEC championship.
Last time we have divisions, this is for the bragging rights.
Georgia's favored by 5.5.
That is what's. I know Georgia's good. I know, but they're not going to beat Alabama by double digits. I think this is a close game.
Do you think it'll be 7 points? I don't know. I'm like you. I think I might take Alabama plus 5.5 on this one. Again, I think it might be a 3 to 5 point game. I don't know if it's 6 or 7.
This is really a 50-50 game because I
Yeah.
feel like both teams have talent. It just depends on which teams make the plays.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I'm like you. I probably take Alabama plus 5.5 on that. We got SMU, Tulane,
Tulane riding off of
American
that high.
Athletic Champion. They're ranked number 22.
Last year, they will finish the year number 9 in the country after beating Caleb Williams and USC in
Yep.
the Cotton Bowl
In the
last year.
Cotton Bowl.
Now
So
they're back at number 22 here.
I think they win this one too. They're favored by 3.5. We got Michigan, Iowa in the Big 12 championship.
All right. Okay. Jim Harbaugh's coming back. And this is the last, the second to last game that Iowa has with Brian Ferentz. And we all know about Iowa's offense and their reputation.
Iowa's 10-2, but it's because of their defense. They're ranked number 16 because their defense is really good, but their offense
It's terrible.
is terrible. I think Michigan. I think it's a 48-17 game or something. I mean,
You
I
want to
think
pick Michigan plus 22?
I'm taking Michigan minus 22. I think they'll beat them by 22. Because Michigan again wants to make a statement, and Iowa can't score. They just can't score. And I mean,
How do they win
if-
10 games if they can't score?
If they get 17 points, look at this. Iowa this year has scored 13 points, 15 points, 22 points, 10 points, 10 points, 15 points, 20 points, 26. Woo! 0 points. The best one they've had is way back Western Michigan. They scored 41.
That's Western Michigan.
That's Western Michigan. Other than that, they against any comparable team, they haven't scored more than 20 points. So if they only put up 20 against Michigan, Michigan's going to put up 48. So I'm like 48-17 type thing. So we got Louisville, Florida State.
This one could be a little bit tricky.
Louisville's coming off a loss, so they're going to be hungry. Florida State's
Doesn't have their starting
doesn't have their
quarterback.
starting quarterback because he's out for the year. But I would still probably go Florida State. Florida State's minus 1.5. I think Florida State wins it just because of pure talent. They've got way more. They're better coached and more talent. Louisville might have been looking ahead to this game last week, is why they lost to Kentucky, to be honest. So they might be a little bit downtrodden now, because they blew the game. They could have they could have finished inside the top 10 if they would have won that game last week. Now more than likely they'll finish around the 20th mark or so after they lose to Florida State. I still got Florida State winning it. I still have Florida State. Now let's talk just a quick little minute on implications of these games. Right now, the number 1 team is Georgia. Number 2 is Michigan. Number 3. Who is
Washington.
number 2? Yeah, Washington. And then number 4 is Florida State. I think Michigan should win, so they should be in. Let's just say that's a given. I don't think Iowa beats Michigan. I think Florida State should win, really. So let's put Florida State in. Now, the 2 games that they're going to make a big difference, Washington and Oregon. Washington's in right now. If Oregon wins, Washington's out. So Washington's out of the playoffs. Now, think about this one. If Alabama beats Georgia and Texas wins their conference game, which we think they will, that gives Texas one loss,
That gives Georgia,
Alabama one loss, Georgia one loss. Texas should be ahead of Alabama because Texas beat them head-to-head. So Texas one loss should go into the playoffs.
Do you keep Georgia in, though?
That would keep Georgia and Alabama out of the playoffs. We could have a playoff with no ACC team if Alabama beats Georgia and Texas wins and Florida State
That's hard
wins.
to comprehend.
If Florida State wins, Texas wins, Alabama wins, the SEC, I think, has a 75% chance of not even making the playoffs. How nuts is that?
That's
Even though
crazy to
Georgia
think
probably
about.
still would beat anybody under them. You can't take out Michigan; they're undefeated. You can't take out Oregon; they just beat number 4 Washington. So there's only 2 spots open. There's 2 spots for Texas, Alabama, and Georgia. So you could take Texas and Alabama because they just beat Georgia, but that leaves Georgia out. You could take Texas and Georgia, but you leave Alabama out. They're the SEC champions; they just beat Georgia. But that's only if Florida State loses. If Florida State wins, you got 1 spot for 3 teams.
That's so much to think
I
about.
would not want to be in the room this weekend picking the top 4 teams after these games are over. I mean, now if Georgia wins, Florida State wins, Oregon wins, then it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. But more than likely, there's something's going to happen, and it's going to go,
Yep.
and then it's going to be chaos. And honestly, I'm
Just a little while.
I'm looking forward to the chaos. But anyways, that's it. That is week 13, week 14. We will come back next week and talk about. We'll discuss the winners and losers of these games. We'll discuss about the rankings. Talk about some bowl games. Bowl games are going to be decided on the 3rd after these championship
Who
games
gets a
are
bowling
over.
ball?
Who
It's
gets
time
to
roll.
bowl? Who gets to not bowl? So we will probably cover some bowl games and then talk about the championship games. But other than that, that's college football for this week. Thanks again for stopping by and visiting with us, talking some football. Thanks again for Severe TV for setting us up here. Thanks again for Autographs Plus hooking us up with some helmets. Be sure and check them out. Other than that, we'll see you
See you next week.